That's what I'm talking about. Just sitting here vibing and rocking out to that piece right there. Shout out to Sister Cynthia for putting that together. BTP Cynthia. She's a part of the family. She's also a moderator on Be the Power. Shout out to everybody that's in the building. Swig 13, Brother Cato, Sleeping Omex, Sister Riri, BTP Riri is on deck. And somebody that simply calls themselves Jesus. They was on the last stream where we were interviewing Warren Mosler on modern monetary theory, MMT. And it was a very powerful and interesting conversation, which led to us having, powerful, interesting conversations, among ourselves. Shout out, brother Andre Boyce. I see you. Where was that footage for reparations from? I'm not sure. Peace, Empress T in the building. Keenan Wright, peace. Share the video out, fam. Make sure y'all hit that like button. Are we just doing a recap? I'm waiting for some of the bros to come in. Brother Logic, Brother Josh, they have really mastered this information. And I was like zoning last night after the stream was over. I was zoning today about the information. And, and I said this in closing of last night's conversation. When we get to the topic of reparations, we ask certain questions, and when we don't get the answers back that we're looking for, we kind of get a little ruffled. I know I'm that way, but it was something different, in my opinion. This was my observation in the way Mosler answered those questions last night. It was on some, at first I was like, I don't know, it seemed like trying to, but then I was like, he's trying to get to the nuts and the bolts of reparations, right? We got From Here to Equality, the book written by Dr. Darity and A. Kirsten Mullins. We have the history. We have, peace, Sister Shanna. We have the understanding of
how it will be paid for. But there's some gaps in our overview. And I don't want to say our collectively, because some of us, we see things a little better than others. And I'm not just saying us at Be the Power. I mean, just some of us in general. And the questions, they weren't really not answered. You know, they were answered, but it was in a way that forced us to think. Like the last question that he asked was, how does day one and day two look after the fact? It was a question that he left us with. I pondered on that question. Shout out to the OG Arthur Ward. Arthur Ward sent me a text early this morning talking about that particular question. And he said he was going to start writing on it. And that's great to see the collective brain juices of the reparationists percolating about that question. How does day one and day two look? Now, naturally and obviously, what we give are merely our proposals, but these proposals stem from what we've been basically studying for the past few years. We understand the harms, we understand the grievances that these proposals, which will be in the form of petitions to our government, are supposed to alleviate. So we've not presented a point A to point B or A through Z black and white blueprint of what day one and what day two looks like. Even if we have a relative general understanding about what that may look like for our people. As you know, we get the not even the conversation, the argument that black people are going to just spend their money and they're going to buy rims and Cadillacs. And, you know, we harken back to Dave Chappelle's show where Donnell Rawlings' character, after black people get reparations, he was like, I just brought this cigarette truck. I'm rich, bitch. Right? We harken back to that particular skit. And it's unfortunate that that's what people believe. We have several different indicators that show and that will show us that real quick, like Cato said, let me pull that up. I mean, even if they do, it's their money. And I am of the same sentiment. But we have several indicators that show that this will not necessarily be the case. We have Stockton, California. The city of Stockton, California gave, what was it, $500 extra to families in that city. It was basically some form of a UBI experiment. And let me just say, I'm not necessarily against a UBI. I'm for reparations. We can't be at the bottom and then, you know, get a sprinkling of something and then think that that's going to be the thing that closes the wealth gap, right? We've pulled up articles here on Be the Power that showed that it will take Black Americans 228 years just from income alone, meaning white people would have to stop working, and then 228 years, we'd finally catch up to them, right? We've replayed those things. So back to the point about indicators. We've had the works that was done by Dr. Darity and several other scholars and academics in that space. What do we get wrong about closing the racial wealth gap? And in that book, which you can find for free online, I think you can download it from the Duke University's website. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong. What do we get wrong about closing the racial wealth gap? Well, one of the things that they were able to show was that in comparison between black and whites, black people actually saved more money than white people did. Now, there's several factors, but it squashes the notion, the idea that we just get money and spend it willy-nilly just because a rapper likes to floss or a drug dealer likes to put 23-inch rims on his whip, his ride, right? There were other myths that were debunked in that paper, in that study, that we would just go out and buy Jordans and gold chains and a bunch of other stuff that, and like Cato said, and which is a sentiment that I echo. If anybody did, so what? It's their money. People find value in different things. I was talking about this with the brothers the other day, that we view wealth differently. We may see some rich white folks that brought a $2,000 crystal swan from Tiffany's that's this big and post that up, and to them that's them flexing, right? That's them flossing. Like, I brought this from Tiffany's, this $2,000 crystal swan that's only this big. For black people it might mean something different. For other groups, other ethnic groups, flossing or splurging might mean something different. We should never limit ourselves. Let me just interject. We should never limit ourselves into thinking that we shouldn't or do not deserve to have nice things just because of our economic situation in this country. Peace, Swig 13. I got brother BTP Ali on.
Peace, family, peace.
Let me pull Sister Shannon's comment up real quick. She says, during the 2007 recession, Stockton, meaning Stockton, California, was the lead in foreclosures in the country. It's about 1.5 hours drive from the Bay Area. Folks moved there for the big house, but would drive to the Bay for the job. That's interesting. But we see in that there was an experiment done. And anybody can Google this right now. Like, I think it's Stockton, California reparations experiment. I can't remember the headline. I could pull it up, but we've shown that several times here on the platform as well. Somebody said, but I gotta pull this up. But buying Roman goods is a waste of money. I'm glad we don't live in Rome right now. I'm just saying. But look, we have new indicators, right? Let me pull this one article up real quick. Let me pull this one article up. This is another article that I pulled up, and Ali can actually give some context to the next leg of what I want to speak to in this regard. So remember when the PPP loans were being distributed, Mother Jones published this article, How PPP Loan Distribution Became the New Redlining. An investigation finds rampant racial disparities in pandemic aid and distribution. And of course, black folks got the short end of the stick, like we always do, right? But there was another article. I'm gonna see if I can pull that up. Ali, remember the article that said that black business startups during pandemic. Let's see if I can pull that up.
I believe it was also a New York Times, if I'm not
LA
mistaken.
LA
It,
Times.
or LA, okay.
No, it could have been in the New York Times as well. But
Yeah,
I pulled it up. Let me see if everybody can see that. Okay, cool. All right. So why did it start in the middle? Okay. It says the pandemic saw a boom in new black owned business. the largest surge in the last quarter century. So we were able to see that with some infusion, just some infusion of capital in the hands of our people. I mean, we're used to taking the lemons that this American life has given us and making lemonade out of it. So imagine if we, if we get more, we get some oranges and some apples, et cetera, et cetera. We're gonna make OJ, apple pie, and everything else that we love in this country. I want to read this headline again, and I want Brother Ali to, come in and go in. The pandemic saw a boom in new Black-owned businesses, the largest surge in the last quarter century. So go in, Ali, on that. And I'm going to pull up this article when you finish about Warren Buffett, and we could get into, some of what Mosler, our thoughts about the Mosler interview.
Yes, sir. Well, one of the first things that comes to mind when you read this article is the pushback that we get generally coming from people within our own community or other people within our racial group who may not necessarily be of our community, but within our racial group, so to speak. And that is the pushback that if Black people get money, access to money, right? Because this goes towards the idea of direct payments, cash payments. If Black people get access to money, all they're going to do is give it right back to white people,
Mm-hmm.
and they're just going to spend it or blow it. Let me use that word. That's a better word. They're
Mm-hmm.
just going to blow it on Jordans, hair weaves, the normal stereotypical things, as they say, all Black people seem to blow money on Jordans, hair
Mm-hmm.
weaves, etc. However, this article contradicts that pushback. It tells you that no, Black people actually understand the significance of ownership and the significance of being in a position of doing for your own self. A lot of people talk about do for self. That's something that has been ingrained in our psyche ever since. We had no choice but to do for self because no one else ever really did anything for us, right? We had to struggle for everything. So at the end of the day, it really just speaks to the fact that Black people actually do understand the importance of ownership, the importance of entrepreneurship, the importance of having something that you can pass on to your children. Now, whether or not they maintain those businesses, even though it was a booming startup, due to the access to capital that came through the CARES Act and the other follow-up pieces of legislation that where the money came from in the unemployment benefits, the federal unemployment supplement, all of those things help Black people to be able to start new businesses during the pandemic. You couldn't go to work. A lot of people couldn't go to work. A lot of people were forced to work from home, which gave them a lot more time to be able to try to start something, and they did it. And so that's what this article is speaking about. With that cash infusion into the economy, Black people took that money, spent it on not Jordans and hair weaves, but they spent it on businesses, trying to start new businesses for themselves. Some people have been very successful. I saw a story where I think a woman turned a little cupcake business into $1 million thing already just by using money that came through aid, pandemic aid, some kind of way. I don't know if it was PPP or whether she was using unemployment money, whatever it was. She was able to start a cupcake business, and she's now doing pretty well with it. So I'm just saying the the statistic is that the majority of Black-owned businesses wind up failing within a certain amount of time, brief amount of time after startup, because generally they don't have enough money to maintain the business. Didn't have enough really to start the business in the first place, but usually don't have enough to maintain it and not able to get the business rolling enough to generate enough money to keep it. So they may not be able to keep all of those businesses, but I'd be damned if they didn't have the understanding that they definitely needed to try to do something for themselves, and that when they had the chance, they were going to take that chance and that
That's right.
opportunity to try to make it happen.
That's right. That's right. And that you know, we a part of what we do here at Be the Power is we try to simplify a lot of this information that we normally hear, but particularly in this space when it comes to reparations, when it comes to politics, et cetera, et cetera. So, but we do it in a way that it's easily digestible. It's easily digestible. Think about it. We've been talking about MMT for the past year. We've been talking about MMT on this platform. In some way, shape, form, or fashion, you've seen us pull up this information. And there's a purpose behind it. What happens when you have a freedman, particularly, right? A freedman politician who's a House rep or a senator. And, you know, they're on the floor of the House. And they're articulating what Ali just broke down about us having or us taking the opportunity to build business and not blow money. And then on the flip side of that, articulating what Yarmouth said, right? This is, what was he, the Treasury Secretary, I believe? I believe he is the Treasury Secretary. Correct me if I'm wrong. But he broke it down, and I'm going to play this Warren Buffett clip, what Mosler initiates in what's called modern monetary theory today, which is why he says he's the, I believe he said grandfather or great grandfather of
Right.
MMT, right? This is the purpose of Be the Power, to be the power, so that we could have our, or create the political education via our platform. We have pamphlets and all of that stuff coming out as well. Head of the Department of Revenue. Good looking, Cato. I said Treasury Secretary. That's is it Yellen? Sometimes when I be doing this, my brain gets jumbled up. Anyway, I want to play this Warren Buffett clip, but you know, I wanted to stress that point that when we have the proper education as freedmen and as reparationists in general, let's not forget what, when we coined the term reparationist, right? We didn't create the term, we just coined it. And then coining a term, it, you know, you take a term that's not popularly used, and now it's a popular term. And when we started saying reparationist, it lit up all over Twitter. People that were using certain hashtags had reparationists all through their tweets. And Brother Ali pulled those up one day right here on the stream. But reparationists can be Republican, reparationists can be Democrat, reparationists can be white, reparationists should be black, right? Reparationists can be Asians. There are a group of Japanese Americans who support and voice their support for our group's reparations. Those are reparationists, right? So as reparationists, I believe that we should have, or that politician should have, that type of education that we give out here on Be the Power. And as freedmen politicians, we should definitely have this education. This is how we move the needle in a way for our people that really haven't been done since Reconstruction. And then we have mirrors of what happened during Reconstruction during the 1960s with the civil rights movement. So let me play this Warren Buffett clip because I think this is important. And I might pull up that video. Yeah, I am going to pull that video up of Yarmouth again. So let's play this.
Debt level, could there be any risks and consequences of the U.S. government? The unprecedented time of the economy and the debt level, could there be any risks and consequences of the U.S. government defaulting on its bonds?
No. If you print bonds in your own currency, what happens to the currency is it can be a question, but you don't default. And the United States has been smart enough, and people have trusted us enough to issue its debt in its own currency. And Argentina is now having a problem because the debt isn't in their own currency, and lots of countries have had that problem, and lots of countries will have that problem in the future. It is very painful to owe money in somebody else's currency. But if I could issue a currency, Buffett bucks, and I had a printing press, and I could borrow money, and I could borrow money in that, I would never default. So what you end up getting in terms of purchasing power can be in doubt. But in terms of the U.S. government, when Standard & Poor's downgraded the United States government, I think it was Standard & Poor's some years back, that to me did not make sense. I mean, in the end, how you can regard any corporation as stronger than a person who can print the money to pay you, I just don't understand. So don't worry about the government defaulting. I think it's kind of crazy, incidentally, this should be said, to have these limits on the debt and all of that sort of thing, and then stop the government arguing about whether it's going to increase the limits. We're going to increase the limits on the debt. The debt isn't going to be paid. It's going to be refunded. And anybody that thinks they're going to bring down the national debt, I mean, that there's been brief periods, and I think it's in the late 90s or thereabouts, when the debt's come down a little bit. The country's going to print more debt. The country's going to grow in terms of its debt paying capacity, but the trick is to keep borrowing in your own currency.
Steel and cement build our cities, towns, and homes, but they're also large contributors.
Warren Buffett simplifies the message that we've been sharing here on Be the Power. You've heard us play the exchange between Paul Ryan and Alan Greenspan, where, Paul Ryan is supposed to be this deficit hawk. All of that stuff is just political posturing. I believe, and this is just my theory, that it has its roots in American racism. I really do. It's like, well, if you give the Negroes anything, how are we going to pay for that? And it just ballooned into this conversation about paying for stuff and not having enough money for it, except when the party is in office. Because when Trump was president, I believe the national debt doubled, or I don't know if it doubled, but some crazy amount was added to it. Nobody said anything. I didn't see a tweet from Paul Ryan. I didn't hear anything from any Republicans speaking about the national debt being blown up. All of these anti-reparationists, I didn't hear them saying anything about the spending that was going on under the Trump administration. Nothing at all.
Right.
Did
you
you
even have
Mhm.
Yeah, you even have people within our own community who pretend to be economists and will talk about talk about the national debt in regards to reparations and what it's going to do to the national debt and how it will break the country. And, the country's going to go broke if they try to do reparations and things of that nature. You have people in our own group talking that madness, man. But it's just amazing to me to when you listen to these billionaires and these people who actually work in that industry, explaining it in such a simplified way, really making it so plain that you can really, anyone can understand it. But just showing that all of these things are really kind of, like you said, myths and posturing, and and I believe, as you do, that it is rooted in American racism, anti-Black racism, in particular, with regard to feeling like you're giving something to those people that they regard as their property, and they don't feel, there are people who don't feel that our folks or our group should ever be able to access the things that this country actually has to offer its citizens.
Facts. I mean, I really truly believe that, and it is what it is, right? but we're here now. So I want to, being that I referenced that video, I want to play that. Like, I remember, Be the Power is Friedman University. So I always want to drive home certain points. And though we don't play a lot of this stuff all the time, I want it to be repetitive in the sense that when we speak on these particular topics, y'all know what our go-tos are. We are building up the next generation of politicians who are going to think so much differently than the rest of the politicians. You see the video we play. I might even play that other video again tonight. But the one we played last night with Obama and Bush and all of these different people, Reagan, et cetera, talking about how the national debt is being blown up and et cetera, et cetera. So let's play the conversation between Greenspan and Paul Ryan real quick, because this is important for us to know as reparationists. The government has the capacity to pay reparations. Do not let anyone tell you otherwise. So let's play this.
Having personal retirement accounts is another way of making a future retiree benefits more secure for their retirement. And also, do you believe that personal retirement accounts as a component to a system of solvency does help improve solvency? Because when you have a personal retirement account policy, it's accompanied with a benefit offset. With that feature in place, do you believe that personal retirement accounts can help us achieve solvency for the system and make those future retiree benefits more secure?
Well, I wouldn't say that the pay-as-you-go benefits are insecure in the sense that there's nothing to prevent the federal government from creating as much money as it wants and paying it to somebody. The question is, how do you set up a system which assures that the real assets are created, which those benefits are employed to purchase? So it's not a question of security. It's a question of the structure of a financial system which assures that the real resources are created for retirement, as distinct from the cash. The cash itself is nice to have, but it's got to be in the context of the real resources being created at the time those benefits are paid, so that you can purchase real resources with the benefits, which of course are cash.
You see, he left him kind of dumbfounded there. Basically, what he said is the United States of America has the capacity to print its own money. And even in that, now, I was hoping Josh was going to jump on. I'm hoping he doesn't jump on at the last minute. But he gave an excellent analogy earlier about, teach a man to fish, right? We know that saying. Give a man a fish, he'll eat for a day. teach a man to fish and he'll eat for a lifetime. And Josh gave a perfect breakdown because, you know, we were basically just recapping the conversation that we had with Mosler last night. And he said, our problem is you can't just give us the fish because the fish you're trying to give us, right, is a dead fish. It's one that has been caught, and we're going to just take it home. We're going to cook it. We're going to eat it. We're going to enjoy it. But after that, it's going to be gone. So this is where the analogy flips for us. And Josh broke it down and said, we don't want a dead fish. We want a live fish. Look at what Alan Greenspan just said. Yeah, the cash is nice to have, but if you don't have the resources in place, then, you know, basically, what are you going to do with the cash? You're going to hold it, you know, or eat it, right? So, and we heard Mosler speaking about some ancient civilization last night where they found like a bunch of coins and stuff that were in the streets. So in my mind, that what Alan Greenspan said is relative to the analogy that he was giving, using that archaeological find as an example. So Josh said we need live fish. We need a couple fish that we can cook. We need a couple fish that we could put in the pond and reproduce to create more baby fish that will grow into adult. Then we need fish business so that we can sell and trade fish. You see? Right. So you wanted to speak to that, Ali?
No, I that's what I was going to say. You also need the places where you can sell fish, because the thing about it is, just using the analogy, we can get the dead fish, but if we had the institution to sell those dead fish quickly, we can sell them to people. They can take them home and cook them too. But at the same time, we still need to be able to continue to raise fish. We need the farms. We need those things so that we can continue doing it ourselves without people having to consistently give us stuff. We can do it ourselves and be self-sustaining.
That's right. That's right. And that's key in this whole conversation. So when I hear the people out there that keep saying 6.2 quadrillion, 6.2 quadrillion is what this country owes us, you know, number one, it's not necessarily an arbitrary number, but it's said arbitrarily to me because there's nothing else behind it. So the analogy of the fish, the live fish, fits in perfect because you can't just keep trouting out these numbers. That also goes to the question that Mosler asked about day one and day two. Day one and day two. See, the fish can come in the form, the live fish, maybe a couple, Josh used the term dead fish, right? The ones that we're going to cook. That's the cash. The ones that we're going to cook, that's going to make sure that our freezers are filled up with fish so that the next several generations are straight. So if you want to add a little caviar in there and call those baby bonds, I don't know if that's a good analogy. Okay, well, we could throw that in there as well. But the complete reparations program ensures that generations from, and when I say complete, I don't just mean cash payments. I mean the things that repair us. We've lost generational wealth through redlining, through land theft, through block busting. We were, you know, this is a harm. GI Bill was given to people that came back from the war. Oh, well, with the exception of a handful of black folks, most black folks didn't get it. Another lost opportunity to pass along generational wealth. Land ownership, right? In the 1900s, our people, there were, 900, what was the stat I read a couple streams ago? 940,000, I believe it was, black farmers that number was reduced to, was it 100 and something thousand or 40? I can't even remember. The number is still so crazy, right? So these are the specific harms. This is what Malcolm X meant when he said, if you stick a 9-inch knife in my back and pull it out 6 inches, that's not progress. If you pull the knife all the way out, that's not progress. Excuse me. Progress comes with the healing of the wound that you caused in the first place. And that's how the reparations discussion has to be framed, which is why you don't necessarily hear us on Be the Power throwing out specific numbers. We speak to closing the household income, the household wealth gap between blacks and whites, right? So Dr. Darity,
let's be clear,
Friedman,
because
that's right.
What white America has to understand, and I think we really need to start driving this point home, is that we're not talking, when you talk about a racial wealth gap, we got, I mean, we could say that, right? You could say that, but at the end of the day, when it comes to this issue of reparative justice for our clan here, we got to make white America understand that, number one, we're not trying to pull you down into the poorhouse, and number two, we're not talking about the entire black race. We're talking about a specific group of people who we identify as freedmen, who the United States government identified as freedmen at the time of emancipation. So we're talking about them, those people and their descendants. We're not talking about the entire race of black people in this country. That's not what we're talking about. So white America needs to be made to understand that. And you know what I mean? Like, it has to be specific. But I just want to interject that, brother.
So when you hear peace, everybody, peace, I'm gonna jump right in. So when you hear arguments like, well, white people were enslaved and some whatever from European times of under the Moors, white people were enslaved in, and Irish indentured servitude, and well, Africans sold you. How about you go back? No. We're talking about specific harms, specific families that come from chattel slavery in the United States of America, and our claim is going to be filed with the United States Congress because we need to access that Federal Reserve because they have the sovereign currency creating capacity to craft a reparations program, and for whatever needs that we need met for, we need to be met for repair, they have the capacity to do that. So we're not talking about none of this other stuff.
And two, Josh, just to add to, because you made me think of something, those other things happened. Were there African people involved in slave trading? Yes. Were there so-called white people? They weren't white people. They were Christians, right? European Christians who were being enslaved by Moors in Africa. Yes, right? At least a million European Christians were enslaved by Moors in Africa, but that occurred on the African continent. That wasn't here. The difference with us and what happened here is that the labor that was put in by our ancestors, our direct ancestors, helped to build this country into what it is today. So us being here as citizens of this country who were never able to benefit from all the things that our people were forced to do to make this country into the world superpower that it is what we're concerned with. We're not concerned with Africans and what different African tribes of people were doing to each other. We're not concerned with the fact that Irish people were indentured servants, because that's not our group. That's for them to really deal with. If that's something that they want to deal with, let them deal with that. They weren't slaves, they were indentured servants here. And the same thing goes for the European Christians who were enslaved by Moors in Africa. If they have an issue with Morocco, if they have an issue with Algeria or any of those countries where they were, or Tunisia, where they were enslaved, then that's something that they can take up with their ancestors, can take up with those nations. But that has nothing to do with us.
Facts. So I want to. Well, being that Josh is on now, Josh, we were recapping some of the discussion yesterday with Warren Mosler. That was a very powerful discussion. What were some of your takeaways from that? Being that you and Logic, y'all engaged him directly. What were some of your takeaways? And just give us a breakdown of what you came away with from that conversation.
It really just solidified my understanding of how this thing really works. And but one of the major takeaways, and I hope a lot of other people caught this as well, was when he asked the question, what would day 2 look like? Because he asked it again. He said, all right, suppose everybody else left and it's just the freedmen in America.
Mm-hmm.
What would you like? What would that look like? How would you want to design society, essentially? And I understand. I mean, that's an interesting question to pose, and I think we need to dive into that. And because now we're talking about the surface, getting past the surface, and we're talking about actually what would life look like? What would the economic landscape look like? What would our participation in society look like in terms of even in the economy? How, and just a general idea. How I looked at it was that there's a chart that we brought up several times. It's the Federal Reserve chart, and it breaks down asset holdings by wealth, and it talks about private business and pensions and equities and
Mm-hmm.
stocks and all this kind of stuff, right? Real estate holdings. And what I'm saying is we need to make it to where when we on day 2, we're seeing our trajectory. Day 1 we see an immediate leap to where we have one of those asset columns is tremendously improved, beefed up. But we need to have like a trajectory where over the course of years we're seeing a large the gap between our holdings of assets and white America's holdings of assets and everybody else is closed. We're not just have just a pitiful where we're 1% of white business, 2% of white real estate, and all this kind of stuff. Like that stuff is insane.
That's right.
No, we're not. If we're 12, 13, whatever percent of the population, we need to be 12, 13, 15, 20% of all of that, of all of those different asset columns. That's what maybe not day 2, but day 2002 needs to look like. That's what that like. We have upward mobility. No more this we falling off a cliff stuff. No, like we're not supposed to be Wile E. Coyote. You know what I'm saying? Falling off a cliff.
That's right.
We're now Road Runner.
That's
Road
right.
Runner can go off the cliff, and he's it's no land. He's still going vertical. He's still going straight horizontal.
His momentum is so he's so fast that it's like okay, I can make it all the way to the other side.
Yeah, he can run all the way to the other side. He can run up the mountain. You know what I'm saying? That's a Road Runner. That's how I see day 2 and day 2002. Look, that's the society that I see how we should design it in a way to where that's where we are. And I got another analogy, but I'm gonna go ahead, Ali.
Yeah.
Well, if you talk about the fish, I had to recap it because you you came on. We was waiting for you to come on. You were Logic, so I had to go into it.
Oh yeah.
So
okay, cool.
I'm glad that you raised the point that the question that he asked, which was if freedmen, if everybody else left the country and it was just freedmen here, how would the country look? I think it's an interesting question to ask for, especially to us, because that's not necessarily what we're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
Right. It's kind of an unfair question in the sense that that's really not what we're looking for. Right. And so for me, I would, I look at things in a more realistic perspective. I'm not looking for the disappearance of people. Right. Even though there are groups of people who, whose mantra has been for a long time, separation or death. Right.
Mm-hmm.
That's not where we're coming from. So, and I'm not of the mindset that, Europeans are going to go back to Europe in boxcars and it's just going to be, the Moors here. I'm not of that mindset. I don't believe that that's going to happen. So for me, it's a thing of what day two looks like is a lot like what it looked like the day before day one, in the sense that America is America. It's just that the descendants of freedmen are no longer a bottom caste in that America, right? We're now able to enjoy the fruits of our ancestors' labor, the fact that we were locked out of so many different areas of industry. We're now able to be in those areas and be in those industries and be prosperous. We're able to access Americanism, American citizenship in the way that we always should have been able to, without the threat of racial terrorism and all of these other things. It looks very similar to what America is now. There's nothing wrong with the country and the way the country is set up. It's just the way that our people are treated in this country is what the problem is. And so that's that's the way I would address it, is like, from a realistic perspective, I'm not looking for people to be necessarily be disappeared from the country and we be the only ones here, right? That's not even a realistic thought. But what I do think is that we should have access, right? The access that were historically cut off from is the thing that we should have, right? Access, because access is very important, man. Having access to the right tools to get the job done changes the whole game.
All right. So somebody, Freeway Dread, put in the chat, I believe Mosler was asking who's going to be on the bottom of the economy on day two. How would you address that, Ali?
Well, I think I'm gonna right. I'm gonna tell you and I'm gonna be very, very frank. I think that all immigrants should be on the bottom on day two. It should not be the people who are day one citizens and the people who are descendants of the foundational people of this country. No, it should be immigrant people. I'm not talking about. I'm not necessarily talking about Ellis Islanders, right? That came in the turn of the century, late 1800s, early. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about all of these people that are coming into this country, that have come into this country from the 60s on. Those should be rightfully, and I'm just being real honest, right? Those are the people who should start from the bottom, right? Because just like everybody else that came as immigrants, that was allegedly, they started from the bottom. Why is it that other people are able to come and catapult themselves past folks who have been here for generations upon generations?
They starting right at the middle, Ali.
You see what I'm saying?
Well, wait a minute. Look at Indian Americans, right? Indian Americans, first generation. They only been in America largely 1 and 2 generations. But you look at the median wealth of, let's say, Washington, D.C. I know Washington, D.C. has a lot of tech jobs and government contracting jobs, a lot of skilled labor employment. But 573,000 is the median in Washington, D.C., which leads all groups that were surveyed. So it's not like we got to also talk about the selectivity. It's a lot of that, but I understand what you're saying. Like, for us to be in America, all these generations, to have made the most contribution, not only socially, but also economically. And like, when you look at our families, like for you to be at the bottom, it should be like you look through your family, across the different uncles and aunts, grandmama. Like it should be somebody that should be able to help you out, lift you up, and give you an opportunity.
Right.
So where you're not starting at zero. We look across the board. Everybody else is damn near zero too.
Think about this, Josh. My grandmother owned a restaurant out in Queens, in Jamaica, Queens. She had a restaurant. It did all right for a while, but then she wound up having to let it go. Here we are trying to get a restaurant moving again, right? In this generation. So we had to start over. Instead of taking over grandma's restaurant, which should have been maybe even franchise at this point from the time that she started, because she had her restaurant in the 70s. Here we are in 2020, just trying to start another restaurant all over again, instead of taking over the one that she had, or the chain, or the you know what I'm saying? Like, here's the thing. Who are Colombians, right? Colombians are South Americans, right? South Americans, these people are new immigrants into this country. When you come into New Jersey in particular, all over the state of New Jersey are restaurants called Noches de Colombia. Noches de Colombia. These are Colombian restaurants that are chained, right? And it's a whole slew of them all over the state of New Jersey. But these are brand new immigrants into this country. How did they do that? When my grandmother, who was born in I think she was born somewhere around 1906, who her grandmother, I'm pretty sure, was probably was a slave or something. How is it that we are in 2021 trying to start all over with this restaurant business when my grandma had one in 1970?
Yeah.
Why do we have to do stuff like that? Why does this consistently happen to our people?
That's right. And
you go ahead, my brother.
Well, I'm gonna just say in brief that we know that the government picks who they want to win and they pick who they want to lose. They're bringing Afghanis over here. You have people chipping in to get them Airbnbs. I think the head of Airbnb that owns that particular company, franchise, whatever it is saying we're going to help. We're going to place these people in homes everywhere. They're getting $2,500 from the government, the United States government. American citizens are taking up donations for these people upon arrival, while we are still economically glued to America's floor with Gorilla Glue. We're just Gorilla Glued there.
And we can't even get people to get donations to help people that are refugees from hurricanes.
That's right. So what you see? So it goes back to what Ali was just saying. It's like as soon as we kind of break out from the glue, like, damn, I just got unstuck. The way this government has been towards us. And the only thing one has to do is review the economic policies of this country, not just economic policies, but the economic policies in this country when it comes to the freedmen since the inception of this country. And you'll see that every time, we get up, we get knocked back down, and then we have to unglue ourselves a generation later, as Ali was just pointing out, starting a new restaurant from scratch, as opposed to having the restaurant business handed down to us in the same way. What was it called? The Noches? What did you say it was called?
Noches de Colombia. The Knights of Colombia.
The Knights of Columbus restaurant by a bunch of Colombians. Who do you think is going to run those restaurants, those family franchises? Other Colombians. I was in Duluth, Georgia, and I went into a supermarket. It was a Chinese supermarket. It had a lot of cheap stuff there. I was like, oh, wow, this is amazing. But all of their workers were Mexicans. This wasn't a black face in there. I said, what? You got Chinese people who have come over here, made enough to build up their own supermarkets, not employ America's day one citizens, the freedmen, but employ the Mexicans. Now, they can employ who they want to employ. That's their prerogative. It's their business. Our point is that we don't have the economic agency to do so. That's why this fight for reparations is important. That's why understanding it is important. Yeah, go ahead, bro.
Some people want to blame.
Come in. Mm-hmm.
Some people want to blame us for that. They'll say it's your fault because you're lazy, you're unintelligent, you lack education, all of these different things. You know, they blame our people for that. The issue to me is that may be something to think about seriously if it wasn't for the fact that you had black families lose millions upon millions of acres of land, and it wasn't all farmland. See, this is the misconceptions. A lot of people think.
Let me just interject. Otis posted a quote from the professor from Howard that you're always beating up on, Daryl Scott. So when you finish, I kind of want you to address the Josh. I want you to come in, but I want you to address Daryl Scott's comment. Go ahead, Ali.
What did you say? Caste is so systemic, it removes personal choice except for people who are willing to suffer the most dire sanctions. That is why it's nonsense to pretend there is a caste in America.
Well, how else do you explain being a permanent underclass? How else do you explain having no upward mobility? How else do you explain, having a less home ownership rates than we had in 1968? Like, how else do you explain that? Other than if you even talk about caste in terms of like, let's say if you get injured, we're talking about you put a cast on a broken arm, you can't move that arm. There's no more, bending your elbow and having a full range of motion. No, that's stuck in that cast until you saw it and do whatever they do to break the cast and take it off. So yeah, show me the evidence. If all the evidence is showing one thing, and you have an opinion that your opinion is showing something else, you got to show and prove something. The hard evidence is showing, yeah, obviously it is a caste system, and they decided that the freedmen are going to be the permanent underclass, also known as or described as being the bottom caste, and it's solidified. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there is no like at this point, there is no look. Here's another thing that Mosler was talking about, and that was the tax system. There's people that put out work on this, but the tax system, how he talked about like the hut tax, and really taxes is just a way to compel people to do work. And if you look at us being at a disadvantage, having to look at like having private business to where we only got like $200-something billion in private business, to where if you put Jeff Bezos if Jeff Bezos and his wife never split up, they would have more wealth than all of black business combined, So if you look at that and you like, how can we behave ourselves out of that? What the personal choice that he's talking about? So you're saying it's a personal choice. We make individual personal choice that can break us, like that will allow us to no longer be the bottom caste. Like it's come on, man.
So let's do this real quick. Let's do this for Daryl Scott or anybody that doesn't believe that there is caste. Right now, we can say.
I just want to say something about it.
All right, go ahead, Ali.
Before you go in, the problem that Daryl Scott is having with it is that he thinks that it's a racial caste thing going on, and because he sees certain things occur, he doesn't believe that it's that the caste is racial. So he'll say, for instance, there was just the other day a black news anchor woman who was proposed to on air by a white guy, right? The white guy came, and I think he had a ring and came and got on his knee to ask this black news anchor to marry him. I guess she's maybe a weather girl, or I don't know what she is.
Mm.
And so because she's black and he's white, he says, why would a white man, if this is a racial caste system, why would a white man marry down out of his caste by trying to marry this black chick? But see, here's the thing. It's not necessarily about race as much as it is about the descendants of the people that they brought here for the purpose of slavery.
That's right.
Right? Our particular group of people are the people they want to be the bottom caste, not necessarily people from Nigeria. We see what they're doing with Cynthia Erivo, David Ayelolo, you name it, right? Over there in Hollywood. They're elevating these people.
That's right.
They're elevating these people in tech. They're elevating these people in Hollywood. They're elevating these people all over the place, right? But it's your particular group. So the caste is the freedman caste. That's the caste. That's the caste. It's not a racial thing per se. It's a freedman thing.
That's
They
right.
don't want our people because in their minds you're slaves.
That's right. That's right.
Now, the
So
point
let's
I was trying to make, I just want to finish my point I was trying to make.
Yeah, go ahead, Josh.
But I was talking about, like, one of the reasons I brought up Jeff Bezos is you hear Warren Buffett and these people talk about they pay a lower tax rate than their secretary and all that kind of stuff. Well, you know, we're getting disproportionately hit with taxes because we have a way smaller capacity to do business, way less people that have businesses, and all the tax laws are set up to where business people that are in business and getting paid via capital gains, those are the people that have a lower tax liability. So it's all kind of ways that we're getting exploited. And to think that, like, you can just how are you going to compete at this point of American economy with low wealth, low access to capital? Then you got to get hit with a higher tax liability, like the pressure being put on families to survive. Like, come on, man. Like, that I don't want to hear anything about the laissez-faire. You talking about a needle in a haystack can make it out and compete today, and they have to be chosen and elevated by white capital. So let's just keep it real.
Come on, brother. Come on.
That's right.
That's the truth.
So I want to do this. I'm telling Otis that this dude Daryl Scott made it so that I can't comment on his story. All right, so I want to do this, right? Let's speak to the bottom. So we see this image. I forget where I got the made a mistake and cropped out the source, but we see this image and it shows that real median household income by race and ethnicity in between the years 2000 and 2018, 18-year span. We're in 2021 right now. It's safe to assume that these numbers haven't changed too much in the past 3 years. Who's at the bottom? Black folks. Let's blow it up. Who's at the top in this time period? Asian. White wealth is not only solidified, it's calcified in a way that, you know, these numbers don't truly reflect the proper comparison between, let's just say, Asian wealth and white wealth. White wealth in the United States of America is calcified. It's just as simple as that. But right underneath them is white, and right underneath them are Hispanic. Who's at the bottom? Black. Okay, so let's try another graph. I have a bunch of them. Okay, flying up the ladder. Hispanic incomes grew. This is from Bloomberg Opinion Source EPI. I forgot what that means. Hispanic incomes grew faster than those of any other group in recent years. estimated percent growth in median household income between 2014 and 2019. Now, we see Hispanics and Asians are in the lead again, right? So we see black and we see white. Again, white wealth is already not just solidified, but calcified in this country. So, well, people could say, well, by judging by this chart, you know, they grew. I mean, white incomes, excuse me, didn't grow. Well, white incomes don't have to grow because they're already at the top of the food chain. They're already America's top earners and have been so since the foundation of this country, particularly this country's economic system. If you want to say after the Great Depression, I mean, you can pick a starting point, right? But the problem is that black, how is it, as we speak to Ali's point about the whatever Knights of Columbia restaurant, Ali is having some issues getting on. Our incomes haven't grown yet. They haven't grown at all. And the wealth data shows that we're stuck to the bottom. So if you have a calcification of white wealth, then you have a tethering of black worth, because it's not even wealth. Can't even speak on it in the aspects of wealth, because the top 10% of blacks that have money own 75% of the wealth. So that means that the 25% all the way on down, if you break it down by deciles or quintiles, etc., I mean, you get to the point where they're underwater. They're in the negative when you get to the lowest quintile. So, okay, let's go to another chart. Oh, here we go again. Now, on this one, assets held by race, well, we had a slight deviation, right, from the usual track, because blacks had higher asset holdings than Hispanics. But this is assets. So some of these assets, one can assume are based on maybe blue vein societies, right? That come from what they call old money. If you're in the South and you go into black areas where you find some black folks there, they're usually Prince Hall Freemasons, and they're usually Shriners. They throw events, et cetera, et cetera. The locals will tell you, yeah, they got that old money, right? So it's possible that those people and those who are in the top 10% have higher asset holdings, because, well, we've been here for that long to have held assets. But Hispanics are right behind us, and their numbers do not start to boom until after the 60s. What you were going to say, Josh?
Well, yeah, I mean, if you look at if just the eye test, just looking at the color that sticks out at you, and that's that pink, that's that pension entitlements, you know, and most of that is probably the second biggest is the black for real estate. So we know most of that is going to be, you know, people that are in the age of retirement. They built up, they got pensions. But guess what? For us that are the children of people that have been working and building up these pensions that are getting ready to retire, those are not transferable to us. Those are not willable to us, you know. And then if you think about the black column, that's real estate. So these are people that have wealth in their homes. They have wealth in their pensions. And the problem is they're living in black folks most of the time living in black neighborhoods. Black neighborhoods are you know, I don't know, I can't recall the exact statistic, but the black neighborhoods, the homes are going to be depreciate. I mean, they're not going to appreciate at the same level. A lot of times they may lose value. You know what I'm saying? So and you contrast that with you know, white millennials, and you could say Gen X, but really white millennials, I believe they're going to be transferred in the next from between like 2016 or something to 2030, I think it is 2030. I can't remember, 2030, 40, something like that. They're getting $70 trillion transferred to them. whereas we really ain't get nothing. You know,
we're just passing down
because you can't pass, your
poverty.
pension your pension from your mama that worked at the post office, or somebody, my mama that worked at the animal control, for the police department. That ain't, there's nothing that's willable from that.
That's
Your
right.
people that got an army, they got an army retirement, and people that I said the post office, that's the largest employer for black folks. But somebody else, a social worker, or somebody that worked for the city, you're not getting that if something happened to those people when they pass away. Those pensions are not transferring over.
That's
to
right. Now we have another one: high incomes. I mean, look at this chart here. Look at this chart here. I'll see you, Ali. I said I just seen the message. I got you. But
okay.
You again, we're at the bottom. High incomes, 2018 income, less than 1 in 6 black households earned $100,000 or more. How can the Hispanics who just see this goes to the point that Ali was just talking about earlier? It is not necessarily a racial thing, because a lot of immigrant blacks help pad the numbers. When you disaggregate blackness and you start to put freedmen in a category of their own, which is what we're fighting for, and you start to then look at people on a separate basis. So even if you say black, but you split blackness up into, you disaggregate it, right? You split it up into black freedmen and blacks from African or Caribbean or other descent. And I'm willing to bet that their numbers help pad some of these numbers, because America has done us so dirty. America has done us so dirty that, we don't even, we probably as freedmen alone don't register in a lot of these categories in the same way as Hispanics, whites, and Asians do. Say we can use Asians, right? So who is an Asian? Let me see. Let's go to this other chart real quick. This chart right here. Key disparities in income and education among Asian American groups. Okay, so let's blow this up. Let's move this out the way. Let's scroll all the way down to the bottom. Burmese Americans still earn more than 40K. They still earn more than 40K. So on the first, I think it was the first chart that I showed where black people were at the bottom, it had us dipping under 40K. It had us dipping. Okay, Native Hawaiians, 60K. These are Americans. These are, let's scroll back up so people can be clear. Key disparities in income and education among Asian American groups. Circles sized by population per group. Please tell me I got the source on here. I don't. Sometimes I pull these charts from off of websites and I just store them. Sometimes they have the source on them, and a lot of the times they don't, and I just forget to add where I pulled these sources from. But you can look, 60K. Look at 60K, Native Hawaiian, Nepalese, Laotian. What's a Laotian, right? Samoan, Thai, Bangladeshi, Vietnamese, Cambodian, Hmong. I never even know if I'm saying that word right. Korean. Then we get to 80,000. And notice how the Korean bubble near 80K intersects with the $80,000 bubble of the Japanese, the Pakistanis, and the Chinese. 80K. 80K. Then we get on up to $100,000. Who knew? Indonesian, Taiwanese, and Filipino. Then we get on up to 120,000, and Indians sit alone at the top of the mountain. You see? So how is it that the country that our ancestors built, number one, are not making sure that we are good, and number two, can disaggregate perfectly these numbers among Asians, right?
Come on, bro.
But
Shit.
when it comes to our people, oh, y'all are just black. Go Federal Directive 15 says what? Any of the people for black that has, what is it, racial origins in Africa
and
or something
black
like that.
racial groups of
The,
Africa.
the black racial groups of Africa. Aggregated blackness. You see, so we have to, our political fight is so multi-layered, and it's going to take specific focuses, and it's going to take specific expertise on all of these areas for us to come together and build the type of political platform we need so that, as Ali said earlier, we can live the American life, period. Period.
That's right. Wow, that's crazy, man, that they would really break down the Asian groups like that.
Yeah.
But just kind of just pile all so-called black people into one thing, and not really give the breakdown the way it's needed so people can understand the dire situation, the real true condition of the freedmen descendants in this country. This is, like you said, it's a way of padding. It's a way of padding the truth of the matter. So let's import a bunch of Nigerians. Let's import a bunch of, Caribbean people who already have a little something. Let's call them all black people, and let's add whatever success they have to the black group success. So it's like black owned business. The first person to own, black person to own this kind of franchise. The first black person to own that kind of franchise. The first black person to do this. And a lot of times these are Caribbeans and people of continental African ancestry. So it's like it is muddying the waters. It is padding the information and the truth of the matter. It colors it, man. It's a color. It's a coloring. And in law, the term color sound like the
Yeah, I knew you was going.
I knew you was going.
I knew you was going. Might be an inside joke for y'all.
Yeah, that's a little inside.
I did need that little. But yeah, I wanted to say too, man. When because I see, some questions asked down here. Hawaii has a very high cost of living, so disposable income is actually low. Yeah, but I already broke down DC. DC has an extremely high cost of living,
But look at Cato's response to that real quick, Josh. Who knows? But the fact that they can even afford to live in Hawaii is in and of itself remarkable. And Hawaii is majority Asian. So the point still stands. Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great rebuttal. I was gonna say I just talked about DC, and I was breaking the numbers down here. Like I don't know if I'm next time when we get on, because I use this statistic so long, I'm just gonna get you to save it so you can bring it up. But yeah, DC is like 573 for Indians, and I mean for Chinese is like 300 and something. And then now let's talk about native black or freedmen, 3,500. So we talking about an extreme disparity there, and so what we're talking about is using the federal government's economic capacity to change that dynamic. It can change that dynamic. We can if that is prioritized, if that is something that America decides it wants to do, there's no economic constraint to doing that. There's nothing that can stop us from doing that. That's what we want to do, so I mean, we just got to figure out how we want to design the program, in terms of because like we talking about cash payments. That's why I was saying I wanted to bring up the fish analogy, just to bring it back, because I didn't hear what Brother Naheem said. So just the fish analogy, cash payments to me is like dead fish, right? So you can get fish. You want to have assets that hold value, ideally, assets that appreciate in value, that hold value over time. So that would be like getting a live fish in a tank, or in a pond or a river somewhere where you got control of it, right? That's like your assets. Whereas cash is like, all right, you got that fish and then you kill it, right? Because just holding cash is gonna, your money is gonna, the value of that money is gonna go down over time, and you know that needs to be consumed quickly, or else it's not going to be any good, right? If you think about, if you kill the fish, now you're going to kill it to cook it, or you're going to kill it to sell it to somebody else who's going to cook it, or you're going to kill it to cook it and sell that cooked food to somebody, or I don't know, maybe you just like stinky fish laying around. But after a while, that fish that you kill, which is like cash, that is not going to be good for very long. So we have to, now, if you think about fish, you want to take some, you want to go and start your own fish farm, or you want to go and breed the fish, or you want to go and uh, populate somewhere where you can teach other people to practice how to fish. All of that, you know, using that good financial literacy that they think they can solve your problems. Yeah, you can. That's like teaching somebody how to fish and taking them to a swimming pool and say, well, you know, you could, you know, you can solve your problems going over to the swimming pool, but there ain't no fish in the swimming pool. So how can I really even learn? And
Mm.
and how am I gonna even catch anything? We ain't got no fish. So yeah, we're gonna need to design the program to where like we have we can kill some of the fish that we get, so we can eat it, so we can, you know what I mean, we can put some in the freezer so we can eat for later. But we also need to have it to where like we could do the other things I just outlined. And so I guess that's kind of how I think about reparations. It can't just be giving you a huge pile of dead fish, right? You better be able to sell that fish quick. You better be able to,
That's
you know what I'm
right.
saying?
That's
Mm.
right. And the
And there's
fish
something.
rots from the head down. Yeah, go ahead,
Mm.
Ali.
There's a point that Josh had raised while we were on the phone. It might have been yesterday. We was talking about the depreciation of money, the depreciation of cash. Today's cash may not, tomorrow ain't gonna be worth the same. So, you know, we can get a certain amount of cash this year, and in 20, 30, 40 years, that amount of cash won't have the same value, you know. And I believe Mosler raised somewhat that point as well. And during the course of you guys' discussion yesterday, you said something about the value of the cash today versus tomorrow or whatever, you know?
Which we find, you know, Dr. Darity, when he speaks of reparations, he always like qualifies it with the statement to the extent of adjusted for inflation, right? So he may have given a valuation. Let's just say he gives a valuation on reparations from 6 years ago, 7 years ago. Well, what he attempts to do, I don't even want to say attempts to do, what he does do is he'll adjust that for inflation. And that's why, you know, there's
Right.
so many things wrong with how the reparations conversation is being talked about among groups like Narcan and Cobra, who are supposed to be like the beacons of reparations. Like they really just have no clue what they're talking about. It is kind of like a big black power, black glove fist in the air, you know, fight the power type of conversation. It's not a real conversation about reparations at all. At all. So,
Right. Right.
let me see. So, you know, I love our
I
chat,
think,
man. Our chat is so engaged, and they're definitely,
yeah, very intelligent. Very
definitely,
intelligent.
definitely.
You know what was very important that he raised? Just thinking about HR 40 and what HR 40 was designed to do, which was create a commission for the purpose of fact finding and entertaining reparations proposals. Within those proposals, you got to start to try to figure out the answer to the question that Mr. Mosler asked yesterday, which was, what does day 2 look like? What does day 3 look like? What is it that you're trying to get? So, you know, I can help you get there, but you got to know what you're trying to get. and I can help you try to navigate your way there. And then also, what does it look like on day 2, day 3, day 4, right? I think as we start to really seriously think about the construction of reparations proposals, these are questions that you gotta really, you have to ask, man, and you
That's
gotta
right.
really consider a lot of this stuff for it to be taken seriously. I think
And
that was a great question that was raised. Go
oh
ahead,
yeah,
bro.
and let me just briefly say that I've been in clubhouse rooms with these people. They don't know what they're talking about. They have no clue because day 2 to them, they're gonna start talking some nonsense about repatriation back to Africa. What are you talking about? it's just crazy at the end of the
Yeah,
day,
man, we're
but
freezing. You talking about
that's
what?
right.
We not nah. Let me tell y'all. I think I already told y'all the story before, but about the Liberian Uber driver, right?
Mm-hmm.
I tell you,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. I mean, like, come on. You want us to like? All right. So for those who haven't heard the story, I was riding to the airport a few weeks ago, and I took an Uber. And my Uber driver, you never know who's in your Uber, but the Uber driver was actually from Liberia. I could tell I've been around a lot of Africans and stuff, so I could tell he's from Liberia. And he was telling me he fought in the Liberian Civil War. He was actually trained in Libya by Russian special ops, like contractors that were procured by Muammar Gaddafi, and they were training the rebels to go back to fight in the Liberian Civil War. Anyway, I was asking about the history of Liberia. He was like, man, you know, a lot of times they try to make the Americo, that's what they call the Americo Liberians, sound like
Mm-hmm.
they were terrible and everything. But he was like, man, if you sell me to America, to Europeans, and they bring me to America, and I'm enslaved for generations, and then I know that you sold me, and I come back, I get to go back over there. Do you think we're gonna be cool and buddy buddy and all that? So yeah, it's gonna be conflict. So I'm thinking about that. Like when you talking about repatriation to Africa, they're making it seem like we trying to get back over there like that. But like it's gonna be all buddy buddy. Yeah, hey bro, y'all
That's
sold
right.
my people over here, and you
That's
made
right.
no attempt. Like that's a hostile act.
I,
Anyway, but I wanted to say one more thing about.
no, and I want you to
Go
address
ahead.
something in the chat afterwards, Josh.
Go ahead.
No, you want to finish?
Oh yeah.
Mhm.
I was just saying about what in my opinion, we need to get some type of like economic projections. Like when we want to craft a reparations program, and I'm sure the experts in this space are probably already working on this. They probably already have thought of this and gotten resources for it or putting resources toward us and making plans about it, etc. But we need to have some type of projections, you know, to see like, all right, if you give X amount of households, yeah, all right, never mind, scratch that.
All right.
Go. What were you about to ask, bro?
Shabazz Novara brought up an interesting point, and y'all are better at breaking this stuff down than I am. So, an interesting comment, I should say. He said it's called the annuitized value, a stream of cash flows discounted by a given interest rate. The future value of a stream of cash flows or the present value paid at some future date. What's your take on that comment?
A stream of cash flow discounted by a given interest rate. Future value of a stream of cash flows or the present value. Say it again, because I'm having a hard time following that.
I mean, I was just trying to see if you.
The future value of money is what it's saying. Future value of stream of cash flows or the present value paid at some future date. Okay, I'm not. That's not my wheelhouse. I have a basic understanding, but say it in more simple terms, and maybe I can
if
follow.
you can put that in there in more simple terms, Shabazz Novara, because I really didn't. I mean, I understood,
It
what you
seems
meant
to
by
me that
annuitize.
he's speaking about Darity's approach to cash payments. That's what it seems to me that he's speaking about.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay, okay, okay, yeah,
So you're
okay,
talking about
okay,
getting paid in $2016, I think, maybe
okay,
the
okay.
interest rate on that.
That makes sense. That makes sense.
If it's more than that, please put it in there. Yeah, I see Cato says, I have a different opinion. I feel like none of these questions I asked for any other group, Native Americans, Jews. Yeah, I understand. We're talking about what we're owed and what we um what should be paid to us. But
Right.
I'm
And
looking at
two,
it like but they're, for Jewish Americans, not even Jewish Americans, it was for Jews. They had a design for society. You know what I'm saying? They got a whole country. So there was a lot of questions asked. Well, how would they design? What would year 20 and year 50 or whatever look like? They had a plan for their society when they made their country. It wasn't just like, we're gonna give y'all some money, we're gonna give y'all some land and do whatever. No, like there was a whole international plan and support
yeah,
mechanism put in place for that, in addition to them getting money. Native Americans
yeah,
and Jews, and I mean Native Americans and like the Japanese Americans, that was such a like one time. Well, the Japanese Americans, that was a one-time harm over a course of a few years. So it wasn't like a generational damage that was done to them. So they didn't require no long-term planning and
that's
all
what
that
I
kind
was
of.
going to say. The size of a freedmen reparations program um, is going to be unprecedented. There's
That's right.
not going to be anything like it. And so the size of the magnitude of it and how long it would take to pull off and everything is a whole different animal. It's a whole different beast. There's like I said, it's no precedent for anything like it. So yeah, naturally there's going to be, and I mean there are a lot more victims than what you're talking about with regard to the Holocaust or Japanese Americans, etc. I think that because there's so many of us as freedmen, um, and the size of what it is, the amount of damage that was done. You're talking about years of damage, yo. This is not, like Josh said, it wasn't something that happened during World War II. Right, that's what happened to Japanese Americans. Something happened to the Japanese Americans during World War II. Something happened to the Jews during World War II. Right, and so you're addressing that that little time period. You're talking about generations and generations and generations and years, and that's just crazy. That's a whole beast, man. That's a whole other beast. You talk about freedom and reparations, man. That's some other shit.
Oh yeah, it's gonna require the proper study, and many have stepped up. Like I said, we have a whole book on it, and we feel that the conversation is going to expand. We have to take over in this space. This is our purpose. This is why we're here right now. We don't have all the answers, and we don't pretend to. We get information, we figure it out, we stand to be corrected. We've been corrected on a great deal of things. In fact, that's how we get to Mosler in the first place, right? Brother Logic was debating with somebody on Twitter. Huh?
I was saying, yep.
Yeah,
I
Brother
remember that.
Logic was debating with somebody on Twitter about tax dollars. And Dr. Darity, he commented on that tweet and was like, that's not necessarily true, Brother Logic, about whatever the tax argument was. I can't recall at the moment.
Nah, I remember he was
It was
talking
about
about
foreign
the
aid.
countries we were
Okay.
providing foreign aid to, and
That's right. That's right.
it was
That's
our
right.
tax dollars that was paying for that.
That's right. And Dr. Darity suggested that Brother Logic check out Stephanie Kelton's Deficit Myth. And you fast forward to today, we interviewed the great, did he say grandfather or great grandfather of MMT?
Great grandfather.
The great grandfather of the very thing that Stephanie Kelton is known for in this present day. So, you know, everything is coming full circle. The resurrection of our freedman identity. There's a power in that. You know, we've pulled up on this platform the records, the acts that were drafted in 1866, specific to our repair. In 1866, that old radical Republican. See, we honor the people that fight for us. We're not we hate all white people folks. See, we don't like the racists and none of that stuff, right? We can't stand those people. But we look for the John Browns and the Alexander Stevens. These are the people that fought. One physically fought. He was John Brown, boy. John Brown. I mean, that he gets honored. I put him in.
Thaddeus Stevens.
I mean, excuse me. Who did I say?
Alexander Stevens.
Oh my God! I said Alexander, Vice President of the Confederacy.
Yeah,
I'm tired, y'all. I'm tired, y'all. Thaddeus Stevens. Excuse me. Thaddeus Stevens. He was sort of like a legislative version of John Brown. He didn't shoot his 44 Magnum, but he was shooting that pin off because, and one day we're going to go back over that legislation, Josh. I think we need to do another stream where we pull up that, because I don't think we ever really broke that down. You know, where Callie House gets her freedman pension idea from is, I believe we pinpointed it to one of those bills that were drafted by Thaddeus Stevens. So correct me if I'm wrong on that, Josh, but I believe that Callie House's pension plan was based off of that.
I remember we dove into that like earlier this year, I think it was, or late last year, but it was I think it was a congressman, I can't recall his name, from Nebraska that had drafted something like I can't remember his name. It wasn't Stevens. Stevens came out with HR 29, which was they had a whole lot of stuff in there, man. Talking about 40 acres, we talking about land, we talking about money for building a house, we talking about the money being put into I guess it was sort of like a pension, or you getting paid on the interest of the 300 million or something they put in there. Like it was a lot going on with that. So yeah, but imagine these things will be put in place upon emancipation, and
Right.
today we got the compounded debt that's on our shoulders instead of accumulation across the generation.
Well, I'll say this: Callie House got her pension idea from Vaughn, the man Vaughn who wrote the Freedman Pension Bill, and proposed the Freedmen's Pension Bill. You can see that on my Facebook wall. I have it as a part. It's what is that thing called? Not the profile picture, but what's it on?
On your, whatever.
Yeah. I have a picture of it on my Facebook wall. So yeah, it's Vaughn's Freedmen's Pension Bill.
Yeah,
and he's looking for pensions for American freedmen, emancipated in 1865. So that's where Callie House got that from.
So I'm gonna pull up this comment by BB Rodriguez. We don't use that term over here, that acronym. We use Freedman over here. So I'm gonna replace that with Freedman. So she says, gentlemen, Afro-Latina here with the great-grandmother who is freedman. Her mother was enslaved in Southern Maryland, 1862. The U.S. reparations is not a debatable matter. A list of eligibility criteria, I guess she is saying, must be established. Dr. Darity has already established that criteria. If you don't know, that criteria is, Ali, you could break it down.
Well, yeah, he's established a criteria. I love what he's done there because it really addresses a lot of the problems that came along with the questions from anti-reparations over the question of, well, who's going to get it? Who would be the eligible recipients? And so I think he did a great job in answering it. And it was a simple, his breakdown of that was very simple.
Mm-hmm.
And, anybody can pull it up, but he talks about number one, being a person who identifies as, I guess, Negro, Black, colored, or African American for 10 years on official documents prior to the onset of the reparations program. That's one part of it. Another part is being able to identify at least one ancestor who was enslaved in the United States prior to 1865, up until that point. So, I think that pretty much covers it, man. I think that pretty much covers it, man. It answers the question. It truly answers the question of who the eligible recipients of a reparations program should be.
Yes, simple, very simple. So I was trying to pull up.
So as far as the sister, BB Rodriguez, if I guess we had to look at the government documents that you filled out. If you put Hispanic, not, if you didn't put Black on there, I don't know. I don't know what you filled out on there. If you put white,
well, she's speaking more so to her ancestor in a
no, but I was talking about like the because she's talking about the eligibility. Mm-hmm. So I was talking about her eligibility.
Oh, okay, I feel you.
Yeah, if you were trying to figure out like would you be eligible, you have to. Yeah, you have the ancestor that was enslaved, but you have to look at like how you identify, in government documents.
And we need to do that. We need to get into a practice of doing that as well. A Kirsten Mullen.
Yeah, I try to do that all the time. I think I've done a good job of that.
Shout out to A Kirsten Mullen.
That's right.
I'm looking forward to the sister coming on and speaking with us when we set up the time with Dr. Darity to come through. I'm looking forward to it.
Hopefully we can make that happen.
Definitely.
Yeah, we're gonna make it happen, man. We're gonna make it happen.
That's right.
Right, Dr. D? Dr. D.
So I want to pull up something real quick. I don't, some people may think about it, because we don't want to use the acronym of that group, that organization. And if you don't know about the beef or whatever, I'm not going to Ali. So let's pull this up. All right. It always does this when I try to share it that way. So let me share it this way. This is Title 8 of the United States Code, right? So this is subsections 31 and 32, Title 8, aliens and nationality. So if you scroll all the way to the bottom in Chapter 4, which has been omitted, you see the term freedman. Codification. So this term was codified. So we, and it's breaking down, right, related to continuation of laws then enforced. Related to enforcement of laws by a former Secretary of War. They're retroactively, I don't know when this was omitted, Ali. I think we need to do a deeper dive because now I'm looking at it and I've never really looked at it other than to pull it up. But now that I'm looking at it, right? It's like, okay, I think we need to do a deeper dive into Title 8, Chapter 4, sections 61 or subsection 61 through 65.
I have it.
Which
I
were
have it. I
omitted.
have
Okay.
the actual text that was there. I have
Oh,
it. I
that's
actually
perfect.
posted that stuff in the Be the Power group some months back. The actual text that was omitted.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. So, you know, let me see.
Yeah, it's kind of wild, bro. Yeah, man. But I saw something about being excommunicated. They say, hey, look, there's no excommunication, you know.
Who said something about excommunication?
No.
Somebody put that in the chat.
Yeah. Like, I mean, look, I don't really have a problem. We just talking about qualifying for a reparations program. We're not talking about.
But
like,
now I want to know what it.
Yeah. Me too.
It's not a big deal.
Okay. I see it. No, that's not okay. Let me address that though. She says, be the power. I don't want to be excommunicated because I'm not whole freedman. Unfortunately, my Caribbean lineage were all enslaved as well. Brother Ali spoke to the last part of your comment, right, about Caribbean lineage being enslaved, and he masterfully spoke to that by saying Caribbeans weren't enslaved. West Africans were enslaved, and these enslaved persons then became citizens of these countries that are now called Caribbean islands. So let's get to the first part of your sentence, your comment. I don't want to be this is not about excommunication. This is about just the way you say you're a proud Afro-Latina. We are proud freedmen. And there's a portion of the immigrant class that don't like the fact that we are disaggregating ourselves and calling ourselves freedmen. They want to keep us as this aggregated collective group while they continue to benefit off of the things that America set aside for the freedmen and their descendants, right? Us.
Right.
And
they want to
then
just be
tell
able
us
to use black. They want us to just stay black while everybody else gets to be Jamaican. And
that's right. So they want us to stay black while they really reach for whiteness in America. And we've pulled up studies that were written on this. What was that paper when for diversity's sake, something usually have that stuff already pulled up.
Yeah, that's a great piece that you're talking about too. You've read from it a couple of times already.
Yeah, so I wish I had it here so I could have put the link in the chat so that the sister could read it. So
I think it was called Diversity for Diversity's Sake or something like that.
Yeah, something it was something about affirmative action and us being boxed out of it. It spoke about Black immigrants that came over to America that held negative views towards us, the freedmen, e.g., African Americans. And these Blacks come over and take on the complexion, not the physical complexion of the dominant society, but the way the dominant society treats us as a people. So
anti-Black racism.
Yeah, so it's not like we're some separatist group. We're still the same loving group of people that we've always been. We're just saying freedmen first because we're at the bottom. I don't know what part of the program you came in on, but I showed several graphs, and I didn't even get through all of the graphs where we're at the bottom, literally, in this country. And everybody else gets to come in and I'm going to use this analogy again. America is the house, the big house, and Freedman is the doormat that all other people get to come over, wipe their feet on before they go into the house. Go ahead, Ali.
Are you ready to get off? I would love for that sister to come on for a hot second and tell her story, because I want to know what her background is. I'm kind of
Well,
interested.
okay. Oh, Sister BB, I could put the link in the chat.
Yeah, I think maybe baby. Well, we're gonna see. Baby.
Baby.
Yeah.
I'm from New York. When I see that name, I see BB.
I
Yeah.
see BB too.
Yeah. In New York, we would pronounce it BB.
In Spanish is I-A-E-O-U. So it's but anyway, let's see what she say. Let's
Yeah.
see
So
let's see
would
let's
you
see
like
who
to
gonna
come
win.
on and share your story?
Let's see.
Bell
Yeah, I'm very-
4148 said, I'm a former New Yorker. Stop making stuff up. What does that mean? Is they talking to us?
Mm-mm. Mm-mm. I don't know what they talking about.
Okay, so look, we're gonna give and then she can correct us on if we're right or wrong. I'm gonna put the link in the chat and you could come on and just share your story. We're not gonna stay on that long though.
Yeah, no. I just wanted to hear, like, I want to know if, like, you know, I don't want to say it.
Sometimes,
I just want her to say it. I want her to say it.
yeah, and sometimes it's hard to understand where people coming from when you just
Yeah.
typing. Yeah, we don't want to be assuming.
Mm-hmm. Come on, BB. Do the Jeopardy music.
Man. Yeah, we're not gonna be on too much longer though.
Oh yeah, no.
Yeah, but I thought the program last night was very informative.
Yes,
I
it
thought
was.
it was positive. It was good to have. If nothing else, we needed to drive home and have people have a solid understanding of the capacity of the government to do a full repair with us. Don't like when we hear people in government say, "Well, how are you going to pay for that?" What's going to
Right.
be? They can pay for anything they want to pay for. Like,
That's another one of them that they always use, Josh. How's it going to get paid for? Dollars and
we smashed
kids and
that up.
everybody else is going to have to pay.
And you
Oh
just
man, somebody just called.
Oh damn. Well, Bebe is her. Well, BB. Now I'm saying I'm getting confused. Her thing is saying that I can see her, but it's saying that her device is not connected. But Ali, I'm sitting here, man, and I'm looking at this Friedman. I don't know why I haven't really looked at the Title 8 until now, but we need to really, look, Section 65, right? And I don't know what RS means. Section 65, subsection 2. All right, so I was saying subsection wrong. So earlier I was referencing it as subsection, but it was just section. Section 65 RS. I need to know what that RS means. So I'm gonna get on that as well. Subsection 2037 says related to wives and children of colored soldiers, right? So I want to know, when was this enacted? The Section 64 Act was enacted July 1st, 1902. And it was related to retained bounty fund. I don't know, what that means. But this subsection, Section 65, subsection 2037, related to wives and children of colored soldiers, made me think about those of us who were not able to access the GI Bill and pass along generational wealth. When was Title 8 omitted? And yo, this I don't know. This is a conversation we're gonna have off the air. We're gonna delve in, but now this has piqued my curiosity. I wonder if we could tie those two things in: the GI Bill and what's here in this chapter 4, which of Title 8, which has been omitted from the United States Code. And I would like to see the positive law. Where is it in the federal? What is it? The federal code
What they call the federal. No, you talking about the United States Code?
Yeah, but you know the United States Code is a Logic just pulled the Josh on
Oh,
us.
he's pulling the Josh. I'm out of here, man. I'm out. I don't know what this guy's doing.
So, the related to wives and children. I don't know. That's a conversation we got to have off air because I don't know. Maybe I'm just conflating two things that are not necessarily related. They may have the same.
I think RS might be revised statute.
Oh, okay.
I'm guessing.
Okay. I don't know. But we have to figure that out. We have to. All right. BB couldn't get on. I don't know if she was having.
I think BB is wearing a bonnet and she just didn't want to come on. That's
How you feel, Harry?
Nah, it said her device wouldn't connect.
I'm just playing BB. I'm just kidding.
Okay, so Brother Logic, being that you on, we was gonna close out. We were gonna let the sister come on and just share her story in brief. But if you want to just give a breakdown on your takeaway from the Mosler interview yesterday.
Why you laughing, Ali, man? What's funny? What's funny, man?
You pull a Josh tonight. Like, I'm gonna get him tonight.
I'm gonna get him tonight.
Man. So basically, you know, the interview was a great interview, a great discussion we had with Mr. Mosler. And ultimately, you know, we kind of highlighted some of the focal points that the freedmen need to have in regards to this reparations effort, and what we need to be shifting and pivoting to, right, is the recipe for reparations. You understand? Reparations is a meal for the freedmen, and if we don't know the recipe, we don't know how much it costs to prepare dinner, right? So a lot of people talk about the trillions and the quadrillions, you understand? But when they look at that thing in such a way as like, I need to get the money before I can decide what I'm going to prepare for dinner. But that's not really how politics is. Politics is the science of who gets what, when, where, and how. And we need to be articulating the who. We all know the who. We got the criteria for the who, right? And who's going to get what. The what is what we need to be focusing on. And we'll get to the how part. We really talked about the limitless capability of how it can be done, far as the government financing a program and project for reparations, right? But what we have to get into the mindset as a community, as this specific group who is in desperate, dire need of this reparations, this repair, right? And who is ultimately owed this debt. We have to understand that it's every component of the reparations, program and project. Keywords, program and project, right? Reparations, Mr. Mosler kept asking, what does day 2 look like? What does day 2 look like, right? And so we have to articulate every bit, every facet of our repair, right? So we need to be able to immediately say, well, this is what day 2 looks like. But we can't get to day 2 until we get day 1 right. We have to understand that we have to all come together on what is the program for reparations. A lot of people talk about the money, but we don't talk about the program. When we talk about closing the wealth gap, we're talking about a gap in ownership and a gap in debt. You understand? So if we're going to repair this burden, we have to really understand what is really going to close that gap. We have to have capital, you understand? That capital investment must be made. But that won't close the gap alone. So we can't just say that that's all we want, you understand? So we need to know, how are we going to get into this American ownership class? Because that's what we're supposed to be. Our blood, sweat, tears, and bone and muscle built the country and was really propped up every American industry and institution. So we demand ownership. That's the equity part, right? It's not just some cash. We need ownership. when we was what was the basis of independence, right? In early America, it was based on land ownership, right? We got locked out of that. They promised the 40 acres and a mule. They reneged on that. While they locked us out of homestead, they locked us out of FHA. They gave us covenant deeds. They gave us redlining. They burnt down communities, right? So we were locked out of ownership. So it's important to focus on ownership in America. You understand? Because even when you got money, we still have to deal with the lockout. We've been locked out because we don't own any of this American industry. We don't own none of America, right? You had Byron Allen as a good example. He got money, but he had to do all that fighting, right? Because they didn't want him to own nothing. Right? You can have money, but you can't have ownership in America. That economic inclusion has kind of died down. We need to turn the volume up on that economic inclusion and continue to reassert those demands of ownership in the American industry, so that when we talk about this reparations program and project, we're not just talking about one aspect of it. And I'm not trying to minimize the importance of cash payments to individuals. That's a very crucial point of the reparations program and project. But that can't be all we focus on, and that can't be all we talk about. We need to spend a great deal of our time articulating our repair. Like, how did Jim Crow hurt us, right? How are we going to repair that? What set-asides and programs are going to be targeted and directed of healing and repairing the damage of Jim Crow? How are we going to repair the damage that came from being locked out of all these land ownership opportunities that the government had? How are we going to repair that? What is the program going to be consist of? Because if it's constructed poorly, it will have a poor effect. But if we construct it masterfully, it will have the desired intent, and it will transform our lives like we need it. And then Day 2 is such an important concept, because reparations is the beginning of us in the new America. It's not the end. A lot of us have the mindset, and we talk as though reparations is the finish line. Reparations is not the finish line. Reparations is the launching pad. You understand? It's the launching pad, so now we can finally compete in America. Now we can finally have a chance to really show America what we really can do. We've done all this and built all this with nothing, and not even getting half of what we have put into this thing. Now, once we get the repair and we are our full functioning, we have been made whole. The reparations have been acknowledged. We've had the redress and repair, and now we can close that chapter. Now we can start a new chapter of freedom in America. So that's how we got to get to thinking. And I did pull a Josh, and I apologize, but I was busy. And, I just wanted to throw that out there. We're going to be coming back, family. We have to become architects of reparations, not just talking heads. We don't want to just be talking heads, parroting everything you hear from every reparationist commentator because it sounds good, and we enjoy debating on Twitter, and we enjoy debating on Facebook. I like a good debate. The brothers that be the power, we like to debate too. But what do we really want? We want to be victorious. That's what we got to be. We got to be victorious, and that's going to take us thinking like architects, building this reparations program and project for the sons and daughters of freedmen. And that's all I got. Peace.
Definitely. Peace.
So, well, I'll say this real quick.
Mm-hmm.
There was a program on one of the episodes of The Breakfast Club, and the sister Angela Rye was on. And Charlamagne asked her about reparations and what she thought about it. And one of the things that she said was, I would like to see our people with equity in a lot of these major corporations in this country. And man, there was people from the hashtag group that jumped on her case. Oh, she needs to shut up. I don't need you saying you don't know what you're talking about. But actually, she was. Go ahead, bro.
Why would they say something like that? See, that's the type of shit I'm talking about, right? We get so focused on repeating what we've heard that we're not even listening anymore. How are you going to make up? Listen to what she said. Equity, right? And I don't care who said it. I'm thinking about what was said, right? We built the entertainment industry. right? We built the music and industry, right? So we got the NBA that's propped up on the black backs of freedmen. We got the NFL these companies have bring in trillion, but it's not just the companies, right? This is an American industry. It's called sports entertainment that was built and made what it is today by the backs of predominantly black men. You understand? Freedmen men. You understand? When we talk about the Major League Baseball in its early days, we are what made that thing what it really was, exciting and powerful. That's why they had to bring us in. If you look at what we've done in the music industry, we made it what it is. If you look at what we've done in the fashion industry, just by how we have, how we wear the different clothes and fashions, we made this an American thing. We don't own nothing in music. You understand? And we done created jazz and blues and gospel and R&B and hip hop and everything else and made these things world famous and popular. Season America with all of this stuff that they create industries out of. And we don't own none of it. So how are you going to laugh at somebody say, I want to see the freedmen with equity and ownership in America? That's crazy to laugh at some shit like that. And we out here,
or even deride them for saying it. Don't make no sense.
Yeah, and I want to say too, a lot of times people may look at that as saying, well, you're just talking about a few people getting access and they're getting rich as capitalists. Like when you look at, the people that we have at the top, the few black billionaires or whatever the case may be. But I don't look at it that way. And maybe that was what she was alluding to. But when I hear that statement, I hear, like, when you think about people's stock portfolios, when you have
there you go, Josh.
over generations, you got stock portfolios that have interest in all of these different companies. You know what I'm saying? You got a piece of a lot of these different industries. It's not just you one mogul or one black billionaire or one you know what I'm saying, person that's got access to and these companies and really nobody else. I'm talking about the group has, just like, it's a lot of people that's just chilling. You see why Starbucks and you don't know, but they got a piece of Facebook, they got a piece of Apple, they worked at Google or something, and they got ownership in Google from the beginning, and they getting dividends from Microsoft or whatever the case may be. You don't know. These people are not people. It's not going to be Steve Ballmer. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the average person that just got equity in a lot of these companies, and that that's what we're talking about, ownership. We're talking about for the masses that have a piece of the industries in the country that we built, especially in the industries that we built. And then we're not even talking about slavery. We're talking about the whole totality of America history.
And then you brought up a good point when you start talking about portfolios and whatnot, because now we're getting into the finance industry, another industry, right, that was propped up on the backs of the freedmen. You understand? We had slave-backed securities. You understand? And you had the first mortgages was levied on the backs of black
what
slaves.
You call them, Josh?
Mortgages on our back securities.
You see? So we don't own nothing in the finance industry. We don't own nothing in the banking industry. You understand? And these industries were able to be made rich and powerful and have a worldwide impact because of us. All of that's connected to our families. These are specific families of America. And what I'm not talking about let's bank black and we need black banks. I'm talking about freedmen owning American banks. I'm not talking about black banks. I'm talking about American banks. You understand? I want some of what America owes me, and I want it from everybody who's doing business in America, because my ancestors built the country. So we're not going to get caught up in the color thing. This is a nationality thing. We built the country. You understand? We have equity, deep equity, long-lasting equity in this country, and it's time we collect. We're not collecting just the liquid out of it. We want all the real resources and assets as well, because that's what matters. That's what matters when we talk about this thing. It's because the government we talked about it yesterday. The government has monetary sovereignty, right? We only spend in our own money and we don't borrow in any foreign currency. So it has the ability to fund anything that it that you can come up with. The real question, the real concern is not how the government is going to pay anything. It's how things are going to be resourced, because those are the things that we run the real risk of running out of. And those are things that can throw the economy off balance and out of whack. So when we talk about reparations, I want ownership in the real resources. I want some capital. Hell yeah, I want some capital. But we have to think about the real value of America is in the labor. It's in the resources. You understand? It's in all of this together. See, a lot of people just think, look, they see the piece of a reparations program that they like the most, and that's what they want to talk about and say that's all of reparations, right? Whether it be land or the money. But you got to look the whole thing. And I can go on and on, but you know, I know y'all want to get. I don't want to do too much of it.
Yeah.
All right. That's all I got. That's all I.
You know, man, this turned out to be a pretty good stream. I wasn't sure if any of the brothers was gonna come on at first, and I was like, these dudes was that speaking to this expertly for the past. Yeah, so I was trying to do my best to hold it down. Then Ali came on, and you know we kicked it up a notch. And then Josh came on, and then Logic just closed us out with the fire, of course. So you know, like Sister Cynthia said, when the brothers get fired up, they get fired up. And we want to give a shout out again to Sister BTP Cynthia for
that's right.
She's been.
What I'm saying.
That's right. She's been rocking with us from day one, even through all the drama and all the crazy stuff. Sister Cynthia's still been there, and
she's been there the whole time.
That's right. She did the intro video that we played in the beginning.
She did that video of me, man. That joint's crazy.
That's right. That's right. And she did the one of Logic, where he was absolutely schooling Reza Islam. You know, Reza Islam doesn't know what he's talking about when it comes to politics and voting and all of that stuff. You know, he's good at like conspiracy theory stuff. He's an expert on that stuff. I can't lie. But when it comes to like American history and politics and our suffrage rights here in these United States of America, he's someone that needs to come into Freedman University, pull up a chair, and you know, pull out his pen and his paper and learn. So, you know, look, we're gonna close this thing out. I gotta get off of here. And powerful discussions that we've had over the past 2 nights, man. We've really closed the door on this argument about how the United States of America will pay for, and we've been doing that for some time now, but to have the guy, the great grandfather of modern monetary theory, on our platform for an interview was very positive. For those of you that missed the beginning of the stream, you know, we talked about it. Ali gave a good response to one of Mosler's questions in the beginning. For those of you who have missed it, about, you know, was that what day 2 looks like, Ali, or was that the other question?
It was the question about what if Freedmen were the only ones here.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I thought Ali gave a masterful answer to that question, you know, and speaking about, you know, basically that's not necessarily our concern. Our concern is just living the American life. But Ali went in detail. So y'all make sure y'all go back, check that out. Again, support the platform, family. You know, our last couple of videos before the Mosler interview were fundraisers for our people in Louisiana. We raised more money. We got about $270 now that we've raised for, you know, to give to another family, or possibly even help the families that we have helped. The first sister that came on that we were able to donate the $800 to with the help of you all. She and her son, I talked to her the other day. I talked to her Sunday. They're doing good. She had to spend that money. She had to evacuate to Atlanta, get the supplies that she needed. She said that she needs some bedding, sheets, et cetera, et cetera. So if anybody would like to help with that and y'all know how to reach us, you could cash app Be the Power also, and you can put for bedding for that sister. And if you just want to support the platform, you could, put support the platform. Also, go to the website, usadof.org. We're going to start putting some Freedmen information up there. We're going to start putting a lot of Freedmen information up there as well. And, we're going to, okay, I got you, Sister Cynthia. I got you. We're going to put a lot of the Freedmen records on the usadof.org. That is our official 501c3. Our 501c4, we been dragging our feet on that one. That's just because we're all so busy, which is Be the Power, making it an official 501c4. That will be done soon. But the BeThePower.org website is up. Make sure y'all go check out our 12-point program, BeThePower.org, and make sure y'all check out our Reparations 101 link, because we give a comprehensive breakdown of reparations. And I just want to, leave by giving a shout out to the whole family. This is what we do. Somebody came on late. They says, what BTP, what's the present status of us getting reparations? Lots of people and groups with varying ideas about the scope and scale of reparations are presenting ideas. Lots of talk. Where are the tangibles? Stay tuned. This is a part of a 2-night discussion. And if you would go back and listen to the discussion that we had last night with Warren Mosler, the grandfather of the modern monetary theory, and our discussion tonight, you will see that it's not just about talk. We actually speak about some of the things that we are proposing as well. And you can go to our website, BeThePower.org, and see the direction that we are moving as freedmen, as reparationists. Our reparations undergirds our political push. But in the meantime, in between time, as we say in the streets, there are still things that we are fighting for, and those things are laid out in our 12-point program on the website. We are not just about talk. Tangibles come when we're able to enact our plan, right? And a large part of our plan is trying to get our people to reverse migrate back into the South, so that we can have political majorities in places like Georgia, South Carolina, Mississippi, Tennessee, etc., Louisiana. You could name some of the other states, Mississippi, where we have black majorities within the next 5, 10 to 15 years, and we can start electing our own governors, and more importantly, our own senators to represent our interests in the congressional body. So definitely stay tuned to our channel. Go check out some of our previous videos. We are not just here to talk. We are not just here to talk. This is a result. The talking part is merely a result of the things that we are planning, and we're trying to get and bring education to get us thinking and moving a specific type of way. So I'll leave you all with the platform's motto, which is don't just fight the power, become the power. And then and only then will you have the power to make a change. And with that, I say peace. Oh, wait, because we're going to play that intro again before we get up out of here.